What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'll be answering some of your questions. We'll be talking about the possibility of a 212th battle pack in 2026, more sets for the Clone Wars anniversary coming in 2028, as well as some fake LEGO Star Wars leaks and rumors, and much more. So if you have a question that you'd like me to answer in the next installment of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. But without further ado, let's get right on into this video. Our first question for today comes from AIJB4NL, and they ask, are we going to see a 212th battle pack in 2026? And honestly, the short answer I think would have to be a no. Now the reason for this is because we already have the leak of what our January 1st battle pack is going to be, which is going to be those two 332nd Clone Troopers as well as the two Maul Mandalorians, which is shaping up to be a pretty fun battle pack, but that does take up the one spot of the two that we could potentially see as Clone Trooper battle packs, and that does leave us with, the potential other summer battle pack slot, which would probably end up being some sort of super battle pack if we ended up seeing one at all. And well, that could very well be a 212th Trooper battle pack. I don't think it is very likely to see them appear in 2026. However, I would definitely expect to see them by like 2028. I feel like when it comes to the 212th being one of the most fan favorite of the Clone Legions, one that we have seen from LEGO many times before. We recently saw them in the ATTE, they were in the Advent Calendar, they were also in those European foil packs. So I feel like when it comes to a battle pack, they're definitely one of the next Clone Legions on the table for LEGO, so I'd fully expect to see them in these coming years, but I don't think that we would see them as soon as 2026. But either way, I think we definitely do need a new 212th Trooper battle pack. That one from 2014 goes down in history as one of the greatest LEGO Star Wars battle packs of all time, and LEGO would definitely be foolish not to rehash it, although it most likely would be a bit of a downgrade from that battle pack. I'd still be very excited to see a new one. Kali Names then asks, should I build an army of the previous version of the Kashyyyk Troopers, or should you wait and see if LEGO will make them again? And thank you for your kind words. And I think there's two main ways to look at this. The first one is, when will the Kashyyyk Troopers return? And the second is, what will they end up looking like? And as for that first part of the question of when they will return, I feel like that is one that's definitely more up in the air compared to the second one. We haven't seen them for quite some time, and when it comes to Kashyyyk and LEGO, they love making Kashyyyk based sets, something that we talked about in the previous episode. So I think it is something inevitable to see over the next like 5 or so years. But that does bring us to the next question, and the fact of, what are they actually going to look like? With the current trend for LEGO Star Wars Clone Troopers, something that a lot of people aren't big fans of. I'm not sure where you stand on the whole current Clone Trooper situation, but they're definitely not going to be up to the standards of the previous one that we saw, because in my opinion, some of the best Clone Troopers that we've ever gotten were those OG Kashyyyk Clone Troopers, being some of the peak design with great printing as well. And I doubt that LEGO is going to be able to replicate that in the current style of Clone Troopers. So if that's something that you're kind of agree with and you really like that old style, I would recommend just going for the older Clone Trooper. Yes, they are kind of expensive, coming in at like $14 to $16 a piece in new condition, but you can definitely get some pretty good deals buying used. So I think that's definitely the way to go, especially because we actually have no clue when the Kashyyyk Troopers are going to be coming back. I do fully expect them to come back, but it couldn't be for like a couple of years down the line. So I say the best course of action would just be to army build the ones that you like now, because we honestly have no clue what is in hold for the future of Kashyyyk Troopers. James asks, do I think that LEGO will make more Clone Trooper variants like Bark Troopers, Airborne Troopers, ARF Troopers, as well as Phase 2 Clone Pilots? And, well, I do think a lot of these are stuff that we will see remakes of in the future. Definitely goes to show how like kind of one-sided LEGO is toward the Clone Troopers that they end up making. We really only see the main focus on the Phase 2 Clone Troopers, just the normal ones. And yes, we got like ARC Trooper 5s, we did just recently get Commander Bakar and the Galactic Marines, but I think there's definitely a ton of opportunities out there to get some really cool Clone Troopers. Like the Bark Trooper, getting a remake of that Bark Trooper set would be amazing. That was such a nice Clone Trooper. The Airborne Troopers, I believe the last one that we saw was in that Grievous Starfighter with that 212th Airborne, or no, it was definitely the Republic Fighter Tank, because those ones didn't have waist capes. But I would love to see more Airborne Troopers come to LEGO Star Wars. I think they have such a sick design, and LEGO has all these molds, in their back pocket, so they could really easily reintroduce them to LEGO Star Wars. I feel like it is just a matter of time, and I feel like the Airborne Troopers definitely a lot more likely than some of the other stuff on this list. But my personal favorite being the ARF Troopers. Some of my favorite designs for Clone Troopers, and we only ever saw them 3 times, I believe. One was the Shadow ARC Trooper Polybag, then we saw them in the Clone Battle Pack, and then we also saw them in the Elite Trooper Battle Pack. But I think that helmet design so cool, and I think there's definitely wasted potential that we haven't seen them be reintroduced for LEGO Star Wars. So I would love to see that. And then lastly, as for the Phase 2 Clone Pilots, that Phase 2 Clone Pilot that we got in the Z95 Headhunter, such a great minifigure, and I honestly have a lot more hope now that the fact that we got the Phase 1 clone pilot, that we could see some more Phase 2 clone pilots in the future. But honestly, I feel like with a lot of these, they are ones that we could see down the line, but I definitely wouldn't hold your breath. I think the most likely ones to see would be the Airborne Troopers as well as the Phase 2 clone pilot, but I would love to see the ARC Troopers as well as the BARC Troopers return to LEGO Star Wars. Our next question comes from Hannah Rallies, a bit of a controversial one, asking, what are my thoughts on LEGO reselling? And I think there's definitely two sides to this coin. I know a lot of people very split about this in the community. I think the biggest reason that I think that it would be a good thing is the fact, like, if you look back like into the early 2000s and the early 2000 sets being very, very expensive and hard to find on the aftermarket because there weren't really any LEGO resellers in the scene. Yes, there were a couple of people out there buying the sets with the intent to resell them later on, sealed in box, but most of the people buying sets were buying them exclusively to, open them and build them, which leads to, if you want to buy some of those older sets, very expensive and hard to find on the aftermarket. But if you look toward like the last 5 years, where there's been a very large rise and a ton of people out there that buy these sets with the sole purpose of reselling them later on, it makes it very easy to find these sets for selling aftermarket. Now, yes, maybe they're not the most reasonable prices, maybe they're, crazily marked up, and that definitely is a bad thing, but it does make it more accessible to everyone if you do end up missing out on some of those sets. So I think for that, it is a good thing, and this is kind of like a hypocritical thing for me to talk about, because I myself am someone, I buy a lot of stuff for videos, and I always end up reselling them later on because I don't have a need for most of this stuff after I'm done with it for a video. Like, I buy exclusively to make a video on it, and then once that video is done, I don't really want it in my collection anymore. So I like, I can resell it and get my money back. So I think that's also, a nice thing. But I do understand the whole like scalper angle. Like, that's definitely bad, and especially with some of the newer sets being hard to find. Like, looking toward that clone pack that was, flying off the shelves, no one can get it off because people were buying them for $15 and then selling them for $30. That's definitely not a good thing, but I feel like it does come down very 50-50, and I think it definitely depends on the person and what they think. So let me know down below in the comments what you guys think about LEGO reselling. Lego Republic asks, do I think that LEGO will ever go back to making the Clone Wars style characters with the animated look like they used to, instead of the more realistic look? And honestly, I don't think so. Now, looking toward those OG animated style like minifigures, I think that they are great. Now, that is the era that I kind of grew up on, so I'm very nostalgic and biased toward this, but I think they look very good, very fun, very cool. I wouldn't say good, actually, but they're very fun. They're unique, I guess would be the right word. But a lot of people don't share that same sentiment that I do, and the fact that they think they look very ugly. And, I can definitely understand that. Like, the Padme minifigure, the Count Dooku, definitely a bit funky. Not everyone's cup of tea. And I think if LEGO was to, revisit more Clone Wars style sets like we have seen in the past, they're kind of using that merge of like realistic / animated style, especially when we look toward the clone troopers that we see. That is kind of like a 50-50 split of, or probably not, more like a 70-30 split of animated and realistic style. But I do think that that is what they would do if we did end up seeing more sets for the Clone Wars. Nathan Gaming says, obviously, the anniversary of Attack of the Clones and A New Hope is 2 years away. But if we do not get a new Count Dooku, I want you, Drew Bricks, to actively tell LEGO that they screwed up. If they do not give us a new Count Dooku in 2027, because you were trying to buy the 2013 one. And unfortunately, whether I tell LEGO they screwed up or not, I don't think they're going to listen to me. But I do agree with you in the fact that we need a new Count Dooku, because the last one we got being that one from 2013, and Count Dooku being one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite minifigures, definitely biased in this situation. But I do think if we do end up getting any sets for the anniversary of Attack of the Clones, we will inevitably see a remake of Count Dooku. Now, there's also a couple of people out there that say, 2027 is going to coincide with a couple of things for Lord of the Rings, and if we get a Saruman minifigure, we'll also get a Count Dooku minifigure because they share the same kind of face print because they were both played by Christopher Lee. Now, I'm not sure how likely that is. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I've never actually watched the movies. I definitely should. I've heard lots of good things, so at some point I will. But I mean, I agree in the fact that if there's same face print, LEGO is definitely going to try and line those up to save as much money as possible and have them both on the print run at the same time. So I think if 2027 ends up being that golden time, that golden year, I would fully expect to see a new Count Dooku. Now, a lot of people saying, though, when it comes to the anniversary of Attack of the Clones, definitely does get overshadowed by the anniversary of A New Hope, because that marks the 50th anniversary overall for all of Star Wars. So I think LEGO will probably focus more on that, but I do think that we will be seeing at least a couple of sets for the anniversary of Attack of the Clones. Devontae Johnson asked, with the rumor of a Miniscale AT-AT, LEGO has opened the door to more non-Starship vehicles being eligible for the Miniscale series, and what would I want to see made? And I definitely agree with you. I think the AT-AT is definitely a step in a right direction and definitely evolving the whole Miniscale series in general. And as for sets, I think first of all, the main one for me has to be the AT-TE. That's one a lot of people have wanted to see, it having such a nice design and one that I think would translate into a Miniscale set very well. Now on that same kind of note, I think a Republic fighter tank, maybe getting an AT-ST to go with that AT-AT would be great to see as well. One that I think would be very cool though would be a homing spider droid. I don't know why, I think that would translate into that set very well though. And I do agree with you with the fact that an AT-AT Miniscale set is going to open up many doors in the future for Miniscale sets in general. So I am very excited to see what could be in store, like an MTT, droid landing craft. Well, I guess that's actually a ship in general, but there's just so many options when it comes to different ground vehicles and tanks and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to see what LEGO does with this, and I hope the AT-AT isn't just a one-off set, because I think there are so many great opportunities if LEGO is to continue with this trend in the Miniscale series. Jackson Lucas asks, do I think that in 2028 LEGO will make a lineup of sets for the 20th anniversary of Star Wars The Clone Wars? And, well, I'm not sure if this is something that's insanely likely, because back in 2023 we did get the 20th anniversary for Star Wars The Clone Wars, but it was the animated show and not the 2D, the 2003 version, not the one that everyone knows and loves. But I do think that it's a possibility to get a couple of sets. I don't think that we would get an overall wave, and the reason I think this is looking toward 2025, the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, we got a couple of sets here and there, but it wasn't like overall waves of just anniversary for the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. So I don't think that we would get a full wave dedicated to the anniversary of the Clone Wars, but I think in 2028 we'll definitely get a couple of Clone Wars related sets. We'd probably get some branding on the box like we saw back in 2023, but I don't think that LEGO's going to go all out and go crazy, mostly because we kind of already had a little bit of a sneak peek in 2023. Now I do think there's a ton of great opportunities to get some sets. It'd be great if we got some sort of cool minifigure stuff that we haven't seen before, but I don't think that LEGO will go all out for the anniversary of the Clone Wars. Our next question comes from Judgment, and they ask, do I think that we might get a new Barriss Offee soon, and what sets do I think that we could see her in? And I think that you kind of perfectly answered your question there. I think first of all, if we were to get a normal version, seeing her in the Geonosis Super Tank would be perfect. It's a set that a lot of people have wanted. It's one that I believe there was a prototype of, but never ended up being made into an actual set, and one that would be great if we did get a new Geonosis wave. You know, you could get that Barriss Offee, you could get that Ahsoka minifigure, get like a Luminara, get your clones, your droids as well. I think that would be so cool to see. If we get the Geonosis droid factory, that'd be sick. I highly doubt that we'd ever see that as a set, but I think getting her in that super tank would be the best option if we want that version. But I think I like your second option better. Getting her versus Anakin in the Jedi Temple, that would be peak. That fight is so cool. You could get a little build of the Jedi Temple, you get Anakin, you get Barriss, you could get Yoda training the younglings. But I think another way that we could see this, probably my personal favorite, is when they were on trial, you'd get Ahsoka, you'd get Barriss, you'd get Anakin, some Jedi Temple guards, and that would be so cool. When she's on trial for the bombing, that would be sick. That'd be my ideal way to get it, but I don't think that one would be the most. It's not very a fun playset. You know, you're not gonna have kids playing trial with Anakin, Ahsoka, and Barriss. Wouldn't be the most fun for a playset, but would be great to get that minifigure lineup and finally get the actual Temple guards. I guess we could also get that in the Anakin versus the Barriss, because we did see them there, but that would be the ideal way to get them, in my opinion. And I do think that we definitely will be seeing a new Barriss at some point in the future. Icy asks, am I the only one who would love to have more Knights of the Old Republic sets? I know it's very unlikely, but it is your favorite time in Star Wars, and you are definitely not alone. Personally, as someone that loves all of the Old Republic sets and also, played the games a bit, not as much as I would have liked to, don't have as much time to play as I used to, but definitely are some great characters, some great opportunities for sets, as well as having some great storylines, especially with all of these different animated shorts. Now, unfortunately, the truth is, I doubt that we would ever see more Old Republic sets, especially because, well, first of all, we saw that Anniversary Malak minifigure, which, goes to show that LEGO's not really planning on making Old Republic sets at all in the future, or Knights of the Old Republic sets, or anything like that. Now, the one kind of hope, the one glimmer of hope shining down is the remake that I believe is going to be a PS5 exclusive, which is kind of annoying because I don't have a PS5. But that aside, that is in the works and will be coming out at some point in the future, and it really comes down to, will LEGO give us a set based on that at some point in the future? And to be honest, I don't think think it is very likely, especially with the current situation for LEGO and what they do for video games. Looking toward Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order, we only got that BD1 set, and that being probably the biggest Star Wars game in recent years, and us just not really getting games or LEGO sets based off of video games is very unfortunate, because I think some of those video games have some of the best opportunities to give us something fresh and new in the LEGO Star Wars, as for sets and stuff like that, and the Old Republic having so many cool characters and other stuff like that to get as sets. Unfortunately, I don't think it's very likely, but I would love to see them. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to get a whole wave based off the Old Republic like we saw back in 2012, 2013, but unfortunately, I do not think that it is very likely. A Woodle asked, do I think that LEGO will make a new mold for the clone visor, since they did make a new mold for the rangefinder, as well as we also got the mold for the macro binoculars? And honestly, I don't think so. I think the reason that we got a new rangefinder is because the old one was it just looked insanely outdated. It was long, it was too skinny, it just didn't fit, especially on the new style of clone troopers and minifigures that we got. And the new one looks amazing, especially on the Jango Fett minifigure. Looks very good. But as for the actual visor, I think the visor still holds up just fine. Yes, it's a little long, and I would love to see LEGO remake it if they could improve it in some way. But as for right now, I do think it gets the job done. We've seen LEGO making them in so many different colors recently as well, and I don't think that it is one that we would see be remade into a new thing anytime in the future. I'd love to get a remake, update it a little bit, but I think for right now, it definitely gets the job done. And out of all of the different helmet attachments, it's the one that definitely least needed a remake. Builders of the Republic asks, will we LEGO ever make a Commander Thorn? And I got no clue. I would love to see a Commander Thorn. I think there's a ton of great opportunities to get him, especially if we get one of on Scipio with his last stand. If we got a droid gunship, maybe if we got a Republic frigate or something like that, would make a great set, and I have no doubt that it would sell very well, especially if we got, a good version of Commander Thorn, unlike the version of Commander Fox that we got, not being the best minifigure that we have seen. Very unfortunate there, but I think that it is definitely a minifigure on LEGO's table. I just don't think that it is something that we'll see in the next 5 or so years. If we did see it, I would fully expect to see it very far down the line for LEGO Star Wars. Logan asks, how possible is it that LEGO will make Death Troopers in 2026? And honestly, in 2026, I don't think that we will see any Death Troopers, but I do think, 2027, 2028, it's very likely, especially because we just got the Night Trooper Battle Pack, and that has those undead Death Troopers, and while those definitely don't, suffice everyone's need for nice, normal Death Troopers, it uses the same helmet mold, so all LEGO would have to do is remove, the undead printing, and boom, you have Death Troopers. So it'd be so easy for them to do, so I highly expect to see them at some point, whether that be in a random set, in a battle pack, or other stuff like that. Now, 2026 would be perfect if we did get some sort of anniversary battle pack like that Rogue One battle pack back in the day. I just think it's very unlikely with how the leaks and rumors are shaping up for 2026, but I fully expect to see Death Troopers in the coming years, whether that be 2027, 2028, or somewhere farther down the line. Now, Sleepy, piggybacking off of something we were talking about in the last Q&A, asked, why are there no new Star Wars Rebels sets? And I mean, as much as I love Star Wars Rebels, don't know if you can see it, right here, I got my case of all the Star Wars Rebels minifigures, a couple of the other sets. I love Star Wars Rebels, but the reason that we don't get any more is honestly, Star Wars Rebels being, first of all, kind of niche when it comes to the different anniversary, not niche, it's definitely a very big show when it comes to LEGO Star Wars. It gets eclipsed by, the Clone Wars and some of the other media that's coming out right now. And the other reason is because I think Ahsoka kind of fills that void that is left by not getting Star Wars Rebel sets. We got the new Ghost that was based off of Ahsoka, and they're not going to go and give us a new Star Wars Rebels themed Ghost when we have the Ahsoka one out on shelves. So just, that just doesn't really make the most sense. And I think that is why we're not getting many sets for Star Wars Rebels, especially because the show ended so long ago, and it's not really being tied into anything new other than Ahsoka. And if they were going to give us sets, they're just going to give it based off of Ahsoka, so that's the hot new thing that's coming out right now. They're not going to, loop back a couple of years and give us more sets based off Star Wars Rebels. As much as I'd love to see that, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Rebels, and I'd love to see more sets down the line. I just think it's very unlikely, and I think that's definitely the reason that we haven't seen many sets recently. Siri Mall asked, if I could make a new LEGO Star Wars sub-theme, what would it be? And I think I did a little bit of thinking. The main one that I want to do is going to be buildable lightsabers. Now, that's something that we see as the gift with purchases a couple of times before. We got Luke's again, and then we got Yoda's, but I think that leaves so many more lightsabers to be desired. I want to see Darth Vader, I want to see Palpatine, I want to see Obi-Wan's, I want to see a couple of others as well. Mace Windu's would be so cool to see, and those being locked behind those massive UCS gift with purchase paywalls makes it very inaccessible to most people, and one that not very fun to get your hands on, being very expensive on the aftermarket, would make a perfect set. Make them $20, put them on shelves. I think they would sell so well. Give them a little like display stand. I think they would look so cool on display. I have no doubt that they would sell amazing. Oh, it would be cool to get like a buildable one of the Lego lightsaber hilt. That would also be so sick. Lego could definitely cope with that theme. They're definitely missing out on some money there. I think that would be a perfect sub theme, and if I had to make one, that would definitely be it. Now, you probably wouldn't get any minifigures in there. It would be sick to get the minifigure of the character that the lightsaber is of. I just don't think Lego would do that, but I think overall getting the buildable lightsabers would have to be the sub theme that I would make for Lego Star Wars. And that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for everyone who asked a question. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer in the next installment of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video, and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Drew, signing out. YouTube thinks you're going to really like this video, so if I were you, I'd click on it.